Bonsoir tout le monde et bienvenue encore une fois dans Parole à l'expert. Cette fois-ci, ça va être un petit peu, je vais dire, unique. On va essayer de faire Parole à l'expert en anglais et j'ai invité une personne que j'ai rencontrée dernièrement lors de mon petit voyage en France durant le Vivatech. Et, en fait, on avait discuté cette année, tout au long du Vivatech, sur l'IA, l'intelligence artificielle, les agents IA et tout. Donc, aujourd'hui, on va pas essayer de parler de Agentic IA. Et pour ça, j'ai invité une personne que j'estime, que j'ai trouvé qui était très, très intéressante, qui est Madame Marinela Profi. Marinela, welcome. Thank you very much for your. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation.
Hi, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Merci pour l'invitation. I don't know if that was right. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you very much for accepting the invitation. So, as we said, so welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. So I'm really, truly, as I said, Marinela, I'm truly excited to have you with us today. Marinela is a strategy lead for AI at SAS, and today we are going to explore this fascinating and timely topic. Everyone was talking about generative AI. We are talking more about agentic AI, and especially how autonomous intelligence are changing our everyday lives. So, as we know, AI is no longer just a tool now. It's evolving and into an autonomous force capable of making decisions, creating content, reshaping industries in ways we couldn't have imagined it and just a few years ago. And today we will dive deep into what these technologies are, how they are impact us right now, and what the future may hold. So, Marinela, who is Marinela? Can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for having me, Jalal. It was a pleasure to meet you in Paris. Well, you kind of said it. So my role is I'm the market strategy lead global level for artificial intelligence and generative AI at SAS. SAS is a leader in analytics and AI. We are turning 50 years old next year, so an important anniversary. It's based in North Carolina, in Cary. That's where I've been based for the past 5 years, where I relocated from Italy, which is where I'm from Rome. I relocated to the United States. And my day-to-day job is essentially I lead the market strategy for our artificial intelligence generative AI solutions. What that means is everything that goes from the go-to-market, the messaging, the positioning, the competitive differentiation, and the value that we provide to our customers, talking to the customers, helping them to implement our solutions, helping them navigate artificial intelligence in a way that it's valuable for their business. So it's a very cross-functional role that I love because it allows me to work from, with the R&D, research and development division, for the moment that we conceptualize the product, we build it, the functionality, to the moment that we release it to the market. We have users try it, test it, and collect the feedback, and speaking with our customers, and all of that end-to-end life cycle, which I love. So that's my day-to-day job. From a background standpoint, I've been doing this now for 5 years, but I've been in the market, in the AI market for about a decade now. And my background is I have a very mixed background. I started with a bachelor in econometrics, which is a mix of economics and mathematics. And then I have my first master in statistics and machine learning, and then an MBA, so a master more on business administration to kind of bridge that technical level with an executive audience, a business audience, which I think it's really important for being able to articulate the value in a simple way of what we do and
demystifying AI.
Exactly. That's right. So this is a little bit about me.
So it's a huge experience. You have a huge experience and very interesting and amazing experience. And I think now you are enjoying your job. So let's start with our first axis. We would
Yep.
like to understand the fundamentals now of the agentic AI and the generative AI.
Okay.
What is agentic AI? How does it differ from traditional AI?
That, that's a perfect place where to start from. Um, I would also add a third layer, difference between agentic AI, traditional AI, and generative AI,
Yes, AI.
because that's also another thing that we've been hearing a lot, right?
Yeah.
So agentic AI, let's say that it's a step beyond traditional AI and generative AI. In which way? When we talk about traditional AI systems, we talk about systems that are built to perform a predefined task, whether it
Mhm.
is a prediction, a classification, detection. So it's something of forecasting something, right? So there is an input and there is an output, which is pretty predefined, where you apply an algorithm, right? Well, like a neural network. I don't want to get too technical, like a gradient boost. Like there is so many algorithms that fall within the traditional AI category that are specifically built to for a predefined task, and
Okay.
that's a traditional AI. Now, what happened with generative AI, right, is that for the first time, through the introduction of what we know as large language models, right,
Mhm.
we now, for the first time, have artificial intelligence that is able to process something that until that point only humans were able to, which is our language.
Okay.
And so what we did with LLMs, with large language models, we released in the world these gigantic brains that are trained on billions and billions on data, whether it is text, whether it is image, whether it is videos, 3D systems, code, everything. Imagine taking every book, every article, the entire internet, everything that exists from like a data standpoint in the world, giving it to these brains, and they use, again, neural network, and they use artificial intelligence to understand the context, and based on the human prompt, which could be written or through voice, they generate an output, right? And so that is generative AI. Now, why all in a sudden, and especially from January 2025, right, is this very recent trend, we started talking about agentic AI? um, because we started noticing a very specific limitation of generative AI, of large language models, which is they are passive tools. They don't have the ability to take action and understand.
Only generating
Right. So
text, images, sound,
yes,
videos.
you can ask, for example, any LLM, like let's say ChatGPT, help me draft an email to invite Jalal for a podcast, and it's gonna do it for you. But if you ask ChatGPT when is my podcast with Jalal, he's gonna say, I don't have access to your calendar, so I don't know. So that it's when we start entering the world of AI that has agency, which means AI that it's able to access tools, which can be Google Calendar, which can be the internet, which can be any application, and has the
It can
ability,
process all the.
yes, has the ability to not just understand your intent, which ChatGPT already does it, but has the ability to plan a sequence of actions to perform what you ask, right? So acting like
Mhm.
a active assistant, adapting to the context, and iterating in a way that it allows it to improve over time. So it's not just about simple automation anymore. It's not just about traditional AI that can just predict or just classify. It's not just about LLMs that only understand an output and generate an input generates some output. It's about combining all of them together.
Okay.
So it's about bringing together traditional AI that can predict, classify, the LLM that it's able to understand your request and process it, and the automation piece.
Okay. And just one question. When we started to talk about agentic AI.
Yeah.
When it was the first time when you started talking about agentic AI.
Okay, the word was firstly introduced by Andrew Ng, which is a very it's a god personality in the AI world, right? And he used the first for the first time this word, but and then it was kind of just widely adopted, right? So there isn't a specific moment, but from the records available at this point, I don't know if Andrew got it from someone else, but that was sort of the first time that we heard that we have records of from the first time. So and it was very recent. It was in 2025 or end of
Okay,
2024.
it's really really recent. Something
Very recent, very recent topic. We're literally talking not even a year that this whole thing exploded, and it's now taking um, you know, it's taking innovation and it's growing at an incredible pace, which is sometimes frightening a little bit.
really at this point.
Yes, yes, it's a little
I,
frightening at this point.
I started to like, I remember last year I was looking about the trends for 2025, and
Okay.
the first one it was agentic AI, and I think we started with, well, I
Yeah.
think we started to use agentic AI before 2025. We started, I think it was by the end of December, or perhaps by
2024.
exactly. So just so you explain a little bit how it's the generative AI for we didn't explain how now generative AI and agentic AI works, but what are the main application today?
Of agentic AI or generative AI.
Both. Let's start with generative AI and go to agentic AI.
Yeah. So when it comes to applications, generative AI it's really good for. We're seeing individual productivity use cases, like for
Mhm.
example, writing content, or for example, generating code, or for example troubleshooting code or developing software, right? So generating the code, or writing social blogs, or helping you with brainstorming ideas. Yeah, so that's what is good at. Those are some of the use cases. Now the I work a lot with enterprises, right?
Okay.
And that is that, you know, there are some applications there with for LLMs with generative AI, but what really fascinates me, I think, is the way that humans are using it for, which is
Okay.
a totally different like side or a totally different conversation. And it's funny because Harvard, they did a study, they did it in 2024, and then they repeated it. Sorry, they did it in 2024, yes, in March.
Okay.
And they repeated it in 2025, March this year. And they identified 100 different activities for which people are using generative AI for.
For example.
And, and in March 2024, it was all about the top ways in which people were using it was writing articles, or create generating code, help me plan my vacation, content creation.
Okay.
1 year later, if you go and you see the latest one, the top 5 ways or top 3 ways in which people are using LLMs for is help me find a purpose in my life,
Wow.
help me find the goal in my life, help me solve problems that I have with my boyfriend or friends, or so it's very fascinating
Are we
that
talking about a psychoanalyst or psycholog something?
it looks like these systems are starting to win our heart before our brain now, right? So and this is both fascinating, it's also very in some ways there is a lot of considerations that could be made around this about how much this is going to impact communication skills, communication effort, inter like relationship among humans. How do we
Okay.
establish relationships? How do we evolve? How do we nurture relationships between humans? Now that you have a machine that resembles a human, it's not a human, but it sounds like a human, that it's so easy to access, it doesn't judge you. Actually, almost 100% of the times, it always validates you. It always tells you this is a great idea. I love what you're going with this idea. This is a great question. You are absolutely right. It's a system that tends to validate first and foremost. And so it's very fascinating to see, and especially in younger generations that are using this more and more for personal issues and more as a search engine, right? So, for example, I have a headache and my eye is trembling. What does that mean? Before we used to go to Google or to a search engine, and most likely it was going to tell us that we were about to die anyway. But now with chat, they're going to chat GPT, they're going to LLMs, and so it's fascinating to see the shift in the system they're using, the goals they're using it for, and the answer that it's giving.
Yeah. The thing that the story that you have already spoke about it now, I have already was facing this that is like 3 or 4 days. I was
Okay.
invited by a journalist and asked me, "Can you explain us this use case?" And the use case was that they were talking some people, most of them girls, that's that are talking to they start talking to ChatGPT as it
Okay.
was their confident or
Yeah,
they was like psychologist. And then here you are confirming to me these trends. So
it's
it's
a
really,
trend.
really fascinating. This is
It's a trend.
from Gen AI. What about
Yeah, this is from
Agentic
Gen
AI?
AI. Yeah. Well, agentic AI now is like agents are in very early stages. People are still experimenting with agents, and it's much more right now an enterprise play than an individual play. Building an agent is not as easy as asking a question to ChatGPT. Okay, it's a very still very much technical skill that
Mhm.
developers are using it for and are experimenting. But on an enterprise level, there are some initial experimentations that are happening, and very much at this point in time, there is a lot of money that is being put into agentic AI for different use cases, from fraud detection, from mortgage in the banking and the financial services industry, for healthcare systems, for example. And but we are not seeing yet, or there are very very few companies that can tell now that they have successfully implemented agentic AI at this point. So it's it's very much early stage. For example, I can give you some example in healthcare. They're using it to orchestrate decision flows for patient triage or
Okay.
treatment planning, for example. Or they're using it, for example, in the predictive maintenance for manufacturing, that you have an agent that runs optimization schedules and sorry algorithms, and then gives you the schedule for what it's needed and how, and then sends out the emails and all the plan for the people and the employees to then act on that schedule, on that optimization maintenance schedule. So it's like before you used to use AI only for the optimization piece. Now you can use it to optimize, to send out the email, to generate the schedule, to do the entire thing, right? But the main question that we are seeing for agentic AI in the enterprise context is, can full autonomy actually work? Because right now agents are being sold like something that is fully autonomous, that you have this magic unicorn that is going to autonomously make all the right decisions for your business and act right and solve your business problems. But the reality, and we are already seeing this, is that, and that's what I and SAS, we advocate for, the human to stay in the loop, specifically for some very high risk decisions, high risk scenarios where you simply cannot and
I will
shouldn't.
come back to this
Okay.
key point. We have a comment. I have Shamsuddin who said, with Agent AI, he can fire his secretary now.
To fire the secretary.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too, it's too much.
So we're demanding agents to agents tasks that we don't want to do by ourselves. Well, that's actually, these are conversations that I have daily, right? Because, and it's fair to have these conversations, because we're entering in a space where we talk about accountability now, not just for humans, but accountability for artificial and digital systems, and who is accountable for them making a wrong decision, or for a human asking them to make a wrong decision, like, for example, fire my secretary, something like that. So yeah.
And this take me to this point, which is what are we talk a little bit about the K technical, but there is something which is the ethical challenges related to these autonomous AI forms, I think.
Yeah, there are many, and I think that we need to talk about them a little bit more openly. At SAS, we advocate a lot for the ethical parts. We have an entire data ethics organization that they just do this. Their job is entirely to make sure that whatever we build is ethical, and we help our customers also stay ethical in the usage of AI. Um, well, on the technical side, it's all about making these systems reliable and explainable, especially when they're making decisions, right? Because the differentiating element of an agent is that has the ability to make decisions. An LLM doesn't. Generative AI doesn't. ChatGPT is not going to make a decision for you, but you can have an agent that
Take this decision.
makes decisions, right? And so whether it is fraud detection, or whether it is HR recruitment, or whether it is diagnosis detection and treatment for humans, right, in healthcare. So, and many more use cases. So first of all, I don't think that agentic AI should be applied everywhere. We don't. It's not like now we need to take everything that we used to do with traditional AI and make it agentic. That's not what should be done. That's not what I recommend. I think that there are specific scenarios where agentic AI can prove increased productivity,
Mhm.
but the ethical piece is very important, because you have to make sure these systems are reliable and they are explainable, most of all. And explainability is a big part of this,
I
because
think we are talking now about the explainability of AI. This is something which is very interesting and very important for everyone.
absolutely, because and explainability, uh, it's important also because for different reasons. First, you need to know how a decision was made, and that is important for risk mitigation, for accountability. We mentioned it before. And most importantly, to build the trust. That's how you build trust in an AI system, right? If you make it explainable. And there are tools that you can use to explain what a traditional AI algorithm and model made a decision, but you cannot explain how an LLM made a decision. You cannot explain why ChatGPT d- generated an output. You cannot explain that. And so that's why for agents, you only use traditional AI models as tools for them to make the decision, and you don't have an LLM make the decision in an agentic context. And that's why you also need to keep the human in the loop, because ultimately you need to involve human judgment. Whoever says today that you don't need human in the loop for agents, that full autonomy is going to work, that it's complete nonsense, especially for enterprise context. Is not going to work, simply, full stop. You're not going to have any bank that it's going to take now and say, yeah, let's replace all my fraud detection algorithms and systems with agents, right? You have no control. You no human oversight. You
Exactly.
cannot trust that at this point in time.
And I think we just answered to the question of Khadija that said we can say that agentic AI is not for the general use. It's used in companies' activities, but not in all companies' activities.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
We have a comment from Mr. Reda Kelkuli,
Okay.
who said that thank you both. I have a feeling that we are already moving to another league.
Hmm.
While we still did not get enough time to grasp the most value of the Gen AI, beyond the technology aspect, do you think there is a fashionable race to the next best thing? Aren't we missing value generation but allowing progressive, controlled evolution of AI?
This is a great question, and the very short answer to me is yes. We are missing a little bit. There is this next how did they call it, next bus race to the, I love fashionable race. There's a fashionable race to the next bus thing. Yes, I think there is absolutely, to my opinion,
Mhm.
as somebody that works in this for a job in daily life, right? um, but the reality, and I have to be very transparent here right now, the reality is that, as they said, it's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of hype that is pushed by a lot of vendors, big vendors that have emerged recently, that obviously they have interest in the world talking about these technologies because that's how they make
Okay.
money, right? And so there is an interest in them to always show that they are building the next best thing, and the race to this called AGI, right? Our general artificial
Artificial
intelligence.
intelligence.
Right. So there is, it's like the entire world right now is racing until towards general artificial intelligence. And until we have not reached that, it feels like nothing else matters. Nothing else can have value. I'll tell you, the majority of the value today still is actually coming from traditional AI.
Okay.
The majority of the value is coming from traditional AI. So yes, great question. There is, and we should take more time in uh, understanding what we have first and seeing if we can actually get value from it before we move to the next thing.
We have another question from Munir, who said, we
Okay.
observed that during the rise of the internet, the model shifted from buying a product like a movie or a feature for good to subscribing to membership with continuous spending just to enjoy access to that item. Do you think we are now moving from a membership based thinking model with AI platforms? And if so, does having a paid AI membership mean I'm smarter than someone using the free version?
Love it. Well, from buying a product like a movie, can you pop up that question again? Oh, here it is. For good to subscribing a
I
membership
think
to.
he's talking more about using a free
Yeah.
version of an AI than using a paid version.
Yeah, and just maybe for the fun of it. Okay, so I pay membership of for OpenAI, for example, and some other AI tools. I do think that it really depends. So if you are a single person and you're just using it for fun, I recommend. I think the basic version is enough. But if you're an organization and if you have a team of people and you might want to consider spending, allocating a budget, a yearly budget, which doesn't have to be 100,000, it could be 5,000, it could be 10,000 a year, right, where you allow your team to use AI tools to be more productive. And I think in that case it makes sense to uh, to um, to pay AI membership. Now, on the last point, does having a paid AI membership means I'm smarter than someone using the free version?
No, I don't think so.
I I have a whole comment here, because smart using is proving, researchers are showing that the usage of AI is impacting our brain
Exactly.
in many ways, and so uh, I'm not sure if, I think we're entering an era probably where we have to redefine how we define intelligence and being smart. Um, Now that we have systems that can think for us, summarize for us, process information for us, generate content, write for us, Um, it's it's um, it's a fascinating time to be.
We have also Shamsuddin who said that seriously he implemented an AI agent monitors dairy cows using thermal cameras and behavior analysis. It detects early signs of illness, stress, or fertility, and alerts farmers instantly. The agent automates health reports, feeding schedules, and activity tracking, boosting meal quality, preventing disease, and improving overall health management with
Mhm.
real-time, smart insight, and it's very, very impressive. So he thank you for the podcast and expertise.
Uh, yeah, thank you for joining. Well, I'm a data scientist. I'm a statistician. That's where my background is. I reading this use case. First of all, congratulations. This is an impressive, value that you're getting, and it's an incredible use for artificial intelligence of AI. Um, I personally, I also have to add that this is not a use case that we invented with agents. What Champs just described, it's traditional AI. Detection is traditional AI. Automation is traditional AI.
Hi.
Activity tracking, there is no, you know, uh, uh, superpower agent doing that. These are things that we have been doing in with AI and real time processing as well. We've been doing fraud detection in real time for years, for decades. So if you don't have an LLM component uh, that is that is taking in some prompt from a human and is then processing that prompt, acting tools, and thinking about what tool to access for what, and then executing the task. You don't have an agent. It's just AI taking some input and releasing some output. An agent is, for example, and this is going to happen soon, is not fiction science, is you're fixing your bike, you open the camera and you say, help me fix this. What problem do I have here? And it automatically it says to you, I think you have this problem. Let me search on Google a solution for you. I found out that you need to buy a piece. Let me find you that piece on internet for purchase. It looks like the best vendor is on Amazon.com because it has a discount. Do you want me to buy it for you? Yes, goes ahead, makes the purchase, and sends it to you. This is whole, with agents, we have this kind of interaction with humans and with data versus just a system that autonomously does detection, analyzes, and receives an output. That's traditional AI. Does have no LLM.
So I have a question for you, Marinela.
Yeah.
Now, what are the transformations that are being seen in sectors like healthcare, education, or content creation thanks to these AIs? It can generative or agentic.
Okay, so I'm gonna start from education because I
Okay.
think that education is going to be the most important, one of the sectors that is going to be completely revolutionized and disrupted
Mhm.
by artificial intelligence, right? By generative AI and these systems. Um, from one side, we're seeing that generative AI in education is definitely enabling personalized tutoring, is enabling adaptive learning for kids and young students. Um, but from the other side, we're also seeing that there is a shift in how people are learning and in what people need to learn now. And so I am on the board of several universities and specifically computer science faculties or data science faculties. And when I talk to professors, the sentiment is still very much, I don't want my students to have ChatGPT in the class. I don't want them to use ChatGPT in the class. We don't, that's not fair. That's not good, right? But from the other side, you have students that go home or in class and use it anyway. So there is some friction right now that it's happening and lack of acceptance. But I think that we will get there because eventually what is going to happen, and this is just my prediction, We're going to see that the education system will have to adapt, where they need to find a way to integrate these tools as part of the educational process and start teaching kids not how to do it without AI, but how to do it with AI and then judge the content that the AI suggested. So, new skills like critical thinking, like strategic thinking, those are going to have to be trained, because otherwise, since we are already demanding and giving AI the ability to think and speak for us, we only are left with the ability to judge their output. And if we stop doing that, then we're screwed. That's when the real problem happens, right? So there needs to be that transitional transition in the education system. Otherwise, we're going to end up having people with a big cognitive gap. They use AI and they just take what it says and they give it to the professor without having no idea of what it created.
So I have a question from another guest who said, "Hello, Gold, great podcast. Some questions. Which kind of data models are used adapt for such agent? Agent LLM is fine-tuned or use RAG for automation input or context? And what about performance aspects?"
Yeah. So you can fine tune agent, yes, using RAG. RAG is a major used for now for the automation input or context awareness, even though RAG is already showing some
Yeah.
limitations already. We are, we're seeing some initial limitations of RAGs. And that was something that I told like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that the RAGs were going to not be the most efficient way moving forward. In the performance aspect, what we are using and is for LLM evaluation and performance evaluation is actually natural language processing. So text analytics techniques are really, really good at helping to evaluate the performance of large language models. I have a blog on this that one of my amazing colleagues wrote. I don't know if I can put it in the chat.
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
can I? Okay.
Or you can share it after in on the
Yeah,
event
I'll
post.
share it. And it talks about how to evaluate um LLM's performance. So we're using NLP, natural language processing, and text analytics techniques. I don't recommend using another LLM to do LLM the performance aspect. There's a lot of people that are using still generative AI to evaluate agents governance and agent performance, and that's not the best case because you are incurring into a loop of continuous hallucinations.
So we have other questions. So first, another one
Yeah.
from Farid who said, "What are the main technical and regulatory challenges that are still slowing down the large-scale adoption of autonomous intelligence?"
Um, well, I'm not sure if they're slowing it down or if they're, fairly,
I
rightfully
think
slowing
more we
it
are
down.
more about talking about AI, ethics AI, or explaining what AI is.
Yeah. Uh, so from a regulatory landscape, I do see a lot of different approach, very much different approaches from what the United States are doing to the approach that Europe is taking to the approach that Asia is taking, right? So when I travel for work to Asia or US or Europe, I see completely different types of conversations and priorities. So in Europe, the regulation are much more stricter, and this is historically through, right? Like European Union or Europe in general, they have always been more proactive in for everything. We saw it with the GDPR for data privacy. We saw it with electric vehicles. We are now seeing it with AI. They're the first one to come in and regulate and say, this is what you can do, this is what you cannot do. In US, there are absolutely regulations around this, but they're more around, here are the end goal that we want to achieve, and here is what we're aiming for, right? We don't accept discrimination, we don't accept harmful behavior, et cetera, et cetera. So there is not versus in Europe is much more specific of the type of algorithm, the type of application that you cannot use, et cetera, et cetera. In China or in Asia, it's a completely different approach where you have a much more self kind of regulated type of environment, regulatory. So it's the government is much more involved into the application of AI directly, and so you see completely different things. Um, I don't think that regulatory challenges is slowing down the innovation. I actually think regulatory bodies are not keeping up. I don't think they're being able to keep up with all this innovation. I think they're struggling to understand what is going on and how to intervene and how to regulate it. So a lot of times they have to call the technology providers and ask them to come in and advise and suggest and be part of that conversation. Um, and this really shows how is not just a political skill anymore. You need a combination and a collaboration between public and private sector to be able to actually and fully leverage this technology.
Good. So we have another question from Yassine Laskri, who is the president of the African Federation Business Networks, Business Angels Network. He said, while technology has been more accessible to the developing countries, he feels that AI is establishing the capitalist model where the developed move faster and the others are kept as user consumers. What's your point of view?
Well, I said this, I think it was 2 years ago in one other speech that I did, which is that AI is going to become the next currency, that it's going to divide the the less rich with the more rich people. And I my point of view is that there has been always a sort of a gap from that perspective, and it starts with the data collection piece. 80%, more than 80% or 70% of the algorithms out there are trained on data from like four countries. So there is not the main gap. I think it comes from the fact that today, even the data that are used to train AI, which means how AI makes decision, come from the biggest countries in the world, come from the more developed countries. And so that means that when an AI system makes a decision, it's completely biased towards the culture of that country, the societal system of that country, and the behavior of that, like thinking of that country. So definitely there needs to be a very active conversation among all the countries, including developed and underdeveloped countries, in making sure that we are not excluding everyone from not using this or accessing this, but from creating it and having a voice into the creation of the technology.
Um, I would like just to continue what we were talking about the use cases.
Yeah.
Can you share a concrete example where agentic AI now are making autonomous decision in real world situation?
Oh, yeah. Well, one example that's, and this is something that I'm working on right now, a powerful example comes from the financial services world. Let's say a bank needs to assess credit worthiness for loan applicants. An agentic AI system can analyze the data, detect anomalies, assess risk, and recommend actions, all with different or varied level of human intervention to evaluate the cases. Um, but, and this is key, it does so in a governed and explainable way. Because, for example, at SaaS, our platform for agents, which is called SaaS Via, we've built systems that allow AI agents to collaborate with humans in the decisioning process, especially where things like compliance, trust, and governance are critical. So where we're seeing value is the in that part. The other example is in data engineering tasks. So you have agents that help with automating data engineering tasks. You know that a lot of times before you even start an analysis, you have to map different data sets, and that is the most time consuming task for everything, right? For every AI use case. And that is the job of a data engineer. And we've built an agent called Data SaaS Data Mapper that we're now working on, and that allows to using agentic AI and LLMs and artificial intelligence to detect patterns and match the data and recommend the data engineer, here is what you should do and here is the best way to map the data. So basically
Okay.
accelerate all the data engineering process, which is, I think, super cool.
So let's go to the axis 3 and the last axis.
Mhm.
There are already at 15 minutes. The times goes
Flying.
very flying fast.
Yeah.
Exactly. So for you, what are the short and midterm opportunities to agentic and generative AI offer?
Uh, That's a great question. So I think in the short term, it's all about productivity. It's just going to be about productivity, accelerating workflows across different industries. That's, I think, is the more the short term. I think in the midterm, it's going to be about how do you scale and how do you integrate this specific use case or this specific task where you already proved some productivity increase. How do you integrate it with the rest of the organization?
Okay.
Because right now the majority of them are running pilots and are running POCs and are running experimentations on like specific use case. But then let's say it works, let's say you prove some ROI, let's say you prove some productivity gain. How are you going to embed that into your enterprise, which is not just about technology? You have processes, you have people. It's a mix, right, of people, process, and technology to make it all work. So I think that the mid or long-term opportunity is going to be in investing in the orchestration, in the governance piece of these systems, and most importantly in the democratization, so making sure that it's accessible to everyone, it's reusable across different departments. For example, one agent that I've been working on is a next best offer agent, right, that analyzes customers and it recommends you some sort of next best offer, and then it generates an email for that next best offer, it sends it to the customer. Let's say you do this for a department in your organization, right? For a specific set of customer, and it works. But then, can you reuse that same next best offer agent and apply to a different department of your organization? And so the reusability part of it, so that you don't end up with tens of agents that you don't know what they're doing and how they're communicating with each other.
Good, good, good. It is interesting to see all these opportunities that are uh, given us from the generative AI and agentic AI. So, for you, what are the risks or associated impacts that should be anticipated, especially regarding responsibility and transparency?
You said risk or societal impact. Did I understand?
Exactly, societal impact.
Well, I think that the most important thing we need to watch out for is decision opacity, which means when people don't understand why AI did something or generated something, that's dangerous in areas like healthcare, like law, like hiring. So definitely the decision opacity in terms of we need to be able to continue to understand. And most importantly, I always encourage to think for yourself first before you go to AI immediately, right? It's great for brainstorming, it's great for giving you an initial boost, but don't stop using your brain before you go to the artificial brain. So I think that's a big societal impact and a big societal risk that we are going to see. A second issue is the issue of over automation, I believe. So when we remove the human from the loop too soon,
We
and
remove them from to taking the decision.
yes, or yes, in too soon, right? In the moment, and of if you look at the life cycle of something, of a use case, there is or the issue of over automation. So that's why personally, I'm a big believer in measured autonomy, which means continuing to embed accountability, explainability, governance by design, not thinking it after, not thinking it, let's build it now, let's see if we can make this thing autonomous, and then you end up in having over automated something, and that was not necessary.
Do you think that we are going to the Skynet fiction?
I think that we definitely are going to see a big change in how we use technology. For example, to me, smartphones are going to quickly go away pretty soon. I think that we are
Really?
going to enter, yes, I do think so. Because literally, I think that it's so outdated that to send a text, I have to take something, use my hands to open it or my face and look for an app and scroll and type.
Put
Like
in
it's
password and all
so
these things.
slow. Like it's so slow. So I think that the entire world of devices, we're entering a device era. And I think that the investments that OpenAI and others are making in investing in devices are a clear sign of the fact that we are entering an era where we interact with technology to do tasks in a more immersive way,
Immersive or just by thinking?
just by thinking or just by talking, or let's start
Okay.
with talking first, let's figure out the talking part first,
That's
then
all
we can.
because some people are not thinking about the way to think and to imagine like the Neuralink from Elon Musk. I don't know if you.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, those are all experiments. I think that we can, when we talk about societal impact, I mean something that has already been scaled into society and massively adopted. I'm not talking about Elon Musk doing experiments in its own company
No,
lab,
we are
which
taking something
fine.
really
Yeah, I'm talking about
serious. Something.
smartphone. I'm talking about a smartphone. When Steve Jobs announced a smartphone to the world, that's a societal impact, right? And I think that we're going to start to see more and more of those announcements from next year to the future about these kind of devices that are going to change the way that we interact with technology. I do think also screens of our computers are going to change a lot, and the way we search through internet and other applications.
So, last questions. How
Yes.
now can business and individuals prepare and adapt to this technological evolution?
Well, the first thing is to me is start learning now. Start learning now. Whether you're a CEO, whether you're a student, you need to start understanding how this technology work and how it can impact your role is essential. This is for the individuals. I know that you, me, the people that are probably watching today, we live and breathe and talk about AI every day. The majority of the world doesn't. My mom doesn't. My parents don't. They have to go and tell them, like, hey, you see this video? You know this is not real. It's like, what? I'm like, yeah. This is now we have systems that can create videos. So if you see something, start questioning if it's real or not. She's like, there's no way. I'm like, yes. This you now are going to incur more and more in this kind of content. So start learning and start teaching people around you. And most importantly, as a woman in technology, I'm seeing from research that there is studies that are showing already that there is a that women are using generative AI tools way less than men across every age range, and that is not good because the studies are also showing that what it's holding us back is because we think that we're not good enough. We think they were
Wow.
not smart enough. We think that, yes, we think that no, this is not for us, it's too complicated. We cannot, because we're perfectionists by nature, right? And there are a lot of studies that show how women need more to feel that they're capable of doing something and to feel ready for it, versus men tend to jump and just go by trial. I always invite women to jump into AI and use AI, because AI is going to define who will have the power to lead over the next decade. And we already lost the financial wave as women. We cannot lose the AI wave. So we have to start learning now. And for businesses, my advice is start investing in upskilling in the employees, because whatever money you put into building any AI system, The first challenge you're going to face is your people are not going to be able to use it, or they're not going to want to use it.
That's good. Sabah has a question and said, how companies in emerging economies use AI and data to boost sales despite infrastructure and data gaps?
Well, yeah, that's sales boost is a great use case. Um, this needs a little bit deeper conversation, this type of question, because when you have infrastructure gaps, when you have data gaps, you need to start thinking about how you can achieve those, especially in the data world. You need to fill the data gaps, because that comes first to me, even before the infrastructure. Synthetic data generation is something that is being used a lot to fill the data gaps these days. So especially for the sales world where you don't have enough data, you can generate synthetic data that have the exact quality of real world data. And I invite you to learn more about the topic of synthetic data, which is not just fake data. It's not fake data. Is real, is high quality data that resemble real world data.
And I have a question from Khair Saitani who said, I think he just came back with what we talked about. Agentic artificial intelligence is promising. Yes, very promising, but the autonomy of agents can also become a weakness if it's not regulated by technical and organizational safeguards. I think we talked about it just
Yep.
like few minutes.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. That's a big part of agents, right? The governance piece. It's going to be absolutely, and the balancing the human in the loop.
So thank you very much, Marinela. So we just arrive at the end of the podcast. So thank you for all tuning in and for this incredible discussion. So I
Thank
think we
you.
covered the fundamentals of agentic and generative AI, explored
Thank
their
you.
real-world impacts, and reflected the challenges, the opportunities. And I will do now officially. You are invited to the African Startup Conference in Algiers.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, let's
So we
talk
are
about
waiting
it.
you.
Thank
So
you.
we are waiting you in December.
Thank you for the invite. Send me the details and I will very
We're
happily
talking
contribute.
in private.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
So
thank
if
you
you
so much
have your last
for the
words,
invite. Last world, stay curious. I have that tattooed, curiosity in Italian. That's my motto. Stay curious. That's how you keep staying relevant. You keep the staying passionate, and no matter what happens around you, whether it's AI or some other disruption, curiosity is gonna save the world. That's really my motto. That's my piece of advice, and I truly believe in it. Otherwise, to the point where I tattooed it. So I'm not lying.
so thank you very much, Marinella, and let's say we will see you very very soon in Algiers.
Okay.
And thank you for accepting my invitation.
Well, let's send me the details in private, and I'll see what I can do. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup pour tout le monde. Merci d'avoir assisté à cette nouvelle session de Parole à l'expert. Donc, je vous dis à très très bientôt et restez connectés et restez curieux. À très bientôt.